Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. You're here at Beyond the Book with Julie. This is the education series, and today I am here with Eileen Moskowitz-Palma. Thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. It's funny because we have a time difference. So it's around 4:30 where you are, but it's 7:30 where I am.
And it looks like you have the sun peeking in, but that must be my imagination. It must be
lighting. Yeah, lighting behind me.
Beautiful. And I see your two book jackets behind you in poster form. They're beautiful. Congratulations. You have one coming out next week.
Yes. So I have Camp Clique. I guess I should match it with the framed print behind me. Camp Clique came out in March. And the sequel, it's a two-part series. The sequel, School Squad, is coming out next Tuesday, October 6th.
Very exciting. Congratulations. That is soon. And I know books are a labor of love writing them. So when they finally have their birth date of coming out, it's very, very exciting because it's a culmination of a lot of time and hard work. But before you became a published author, you were a school teacher, an elementary school teacher. Talk about what grades you taught, what you loved about being a school teacher.
Okay, so it's funny because I teach adults now, and I always tell them that I teach writing now at Sarah Lawrence College's The Writing Institute. And I always tell my students, I'm not a writer who's just now teaching. I'm half teacher and half writer. I've always been half and half. I studied both in college, and before I became a writer, I taught elementary school, and I loved it so much. And bless you.
Sorry.
And my favorite. Oh, it's probably from all your interviews. A lot. So I taught second grade and I taught fourth grade. And one of the things that was so special to me is I was a huge Harry Potter fan when the books first came out.
Yes.
And I had some reluctant readers in my fourth grade class, but they all loved the first Harry Potter book. And so they really looked forward to the time that we would read together, and I would do writing activities with them based on the book. And it really showed me that when kids feel a personal connection to a story, it can inspire them not just to do the reading part, but to dig deeper and talk about the story and write and do extensions activities from it. And so that is something that was my favorite part of
it's so special because you were able to pull something out of them and get them excited and inspired and wanting to be engaged, which is probably what the teacher wants more than anything, right?
Definitely. And so when I became a writer, it seemed natural for me to write middle grades. So that's for grades 3 through 8. And that sort of hits my favorite grades to work with. And so I really wanted to write the kinds of books that would inspire all different kinds of readers. I wanted to be able to reach the upper level, more analytical readers to get them to think on deeper levels about my writing. But I also wanted to be accessible to kids who are just sort of hitting their stride with reading.
Right.
And so my stories have a lot of layers to them. But I made a stylistic choice not to have really high-level vocabulary words. I wanted to have words that all readers could read, from third grade and up, and then have these layers that, depending on their maturity level and how deep they wanted to go, they could really dive into.
Right. That's excellent. Well, I know that my 5th grade daughter loves both of these books. She's had the opportunity to read both. So thank you very much. And she loved interviewing you, and she's in a creative writing class with you. So let's talk about you teaching these creative writing classes now to youngsters. And did that sort of come about during COVID that you were able to start offering these classes?
Okay, so what happened with me is I loved working with kids. I loved teaching them. And long story short, I have some autoimmune problems, and I had to stop working in the classroom with kids because they bring their germs with them, and I would catch everything they had. So the thing I was really looking forward to with the book launch were school visits and library visits. It was my chance to reconnect at the classroom level all over again.
Right.
And so I live here in New York, where we got hit, I guess, first.
Yep.
And so in early March, it was terrifying here in New York because
Horrible.
everyone
Yes.
was going about their business not knowing COVID had hit. So I was dealing with the fears of that. But on top of that, I realized that I wasn't going to have any school visits. The crazy part was the week before everything shut down in New York, I made it to one school in the Bronx. I made it to their creative writing club. And I had that opportunity to reach the kids like I did when I taught them Harry Potter all those years ago, only with my own book. And so we talked a little bit about the book, and then I gave them some writing activities, and we worked together, and we had a little mini writing workshop experience like I do at Sarah Lawrence. So when the schools shut down, and I was devastated. I wasn't heartbroken about missing a big book party. I was sad about the school visits. So my husband said to me, I think you're missing something here. You always say that you're half teacher, half writer. This is your opportunity to figure out how to help all of these kids who are home from school right now, and all of these parents who don't know what to do with them. So over the course of a weekend, we sort of brainstormed back and forth and came up with this idea of this creative writing camp. And I don't charge for my creative writing camps. I just ask that each child purchase a book. And I made a flyer. No, my husband made the flyer. I have to give him the creds. He made the flyer. I put it up on Facebook on a Monday morning. And I was teaching virtually my Sarah Lawrence adults all day. When I finished teaching, my whole inbox was filled with parents who needed this for their kids. And so this thing that I thought was just going to be a little 2-week program to help parents get over that initial hump of not knowing what to do with their kids.
Right.
Now here we are. I've been doing this since March. I've worked with over 300 kids, 6 public libraries, the Providence Children's Museum, Sarah Lawrence. So it's just been, it's sort of exploded.
Yeah.
And so what I'm basically doing is I'm taking that experience that I had with that writing group in the Bronx in person, and I'm just doing it like we're talking now. And I'm sure Allie can tell you, sometimes we forget that we're all on Zoom, because I try to bring that same energy that I bring in person across the computer screen.
And that is what my daughter notices. Allison loves that you are so animated and so fun, and it feels like she's right there with you, even though you're across the country.
That makes me happy. That's my goal.
Yes. And you are just so special and so energetic and lively and happy. And so, yes, you are doing a class with my daughter, Allison, and 3 of her friends, and they are loving it. And they're writing, and you're talking with them. And it's just really special, because it's something out of the ordinary that they wouldn't otherwise get, that we wouldn't know about, right, from across the country. And you're a published author, and it's especially exciting and cool, and to learn about how you do that, and that is attainable, right?
Yes, and I always tell my groups at some point, I haven't told Allison's group yet, but when I was growing up, I loved Mary Higgins Clark books. I discovered them in 7th or 8th grade. One of my reading classes had whatever books she had out at the time. And I loved her I loved her writing. And she came to my school for an author visit when I was in high school. And it was so impactful. I remember she talked about how she was a single mom, and she would get up in the morning before her full-time job and have her coffee and work on her manuscript. And I remembered it all those years later, and it gave me hope. And then when my daughter was in 2nd grade, Mary Higgins Clark came to our local bookstore, and she came with her daughter because they were co-writing a book. And I brought my daughter and told her how she had inspired me all those years ago. So I think when I have these one-on-one sessions with kids, that even if there's just 1 or 2 kids out there who maybe they want to be a writer or some other creative kind of job, it can give them hope, and maybe they'll remember one day their experience with me.
Yes, yes. And it's inspiring. And I think that's so special. You're a published author. They read your books. They get to have these classes with you, learn from you, be inspired by you, and then realize like, hey, maybe that is a possibility and something I can work towards. I love that. I love those stories about your own experience and that you want to pass that forward. And that is really special.
I also think during this time, it's really important to be putting positive messages out there for kids. I mean, I started this, like I said, when everything had closed down, and I was working, some of the groups I was working with had been under quarantine. They were like the first groups of families who had been quarantined here in New York. Mm-hmm. And so when I started working with them, they had been quarantined for weeks longer than everybody else.
Right.
And, they really needed something positive to talk about that's not about COVID. And
they needed to get out of that isolation, especially for kids, and to have a reason to come together and be together and see each other and expose themselves to something a little different. I agree. So important.
That social piece of it, they were missing. And so some of the groups, the kids didn't know anybody. And so I'd have a kid in California make friends with a kid in New York, just like us, you know, and they would get to know each other. And then I had groups where there were kids who knew each other, but they hadn't seen each other in person for weeks. And so they would see each other and wave and you know, it was so special. And so I think that one thing we all need to remember, everyone just thinks, I think our first thought is, oh, a Zoom class, another one.
Right.
But we have to find ways for our kids to connect with each other. It's so important.
Yes.
And
in such a special way. And it's great that you are offering this and you're offering your expertise because it is very, very special. I mean, when else will they have time to do this type of thing, right? If everything were opened again, they'd all be running around to sports and after school activities and all day school. And there just wouldn't be enough time in the day for something like this. But it's like time has stopped to let kids try out something different and something new.
That's so true. Yeah, you're right, because before we know it, they're going to have these rigid schedules all over again.
Right.
And
right.
I get in my own house, it's like that. So my daughter Molly was supposed to be at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, but the school closed the campus due to COVID. So she's spending her first semester of freshman year at home taking her classes. But we went out.
Heartbreaking, right?
I never understood what the word bittersweet really truly meant until I'm in this moment of enjoying extra time with her, but being so sad for her and heartbroken that she's not at school like she should be. So it's tricky. But we went to an apple orchard last weekend, and we realized every other weekend when she was in high school, we were at a cross-country meet cheering her on and doing that. But because of COVID, we had this special time together. And so I kind of look at my writing camps like, you know, let's do something special with this extra time that we have. And maybe there'll be a kid who finds this interest that they didn't realize that they had.
Absolutely. Yes. Hopefully that happens. And I'm sure it is, because we have time to explore different options.
Yes.
Really great. So in your teaching, when you're teaching all of these students by Zoom, and I mean, I know you're teaching something very creative and fun, but, you know, are there times when students are sort of like, you know, dozing off, or not dozing off, but maybe peering down to another device that is right at their disposal, right? Or just sort of ADD around them? How do you keep them engaged?
Okay, so I did have this one group. I don't like to generalize by gender, but I had a group of 20-something second and third grade boys. And I just had a feeling coming into it that it might be a little hard for them not to get the wiggles for an hour-long writing session. And so I did these things called brain breaks with them. And so because I knew just from teaching second grade, I knew some of the boys they have a little more physical energy. Not all, I don't want to generalize, but I figured that might be the case. So I told the boys we were going to do brain breaks. And so I am very into organic. I can tell when everyone's got the wiggles and it's time to stop. It could be 10 minutes. It could be a 15-minute stretch. So what I would do is I would say, okay, it's brain break time. And I would let the boys pick something. We would do push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, some kind of physical thing. Right. And I would do it too. So my Zoom screen would be where they could see me doing the push-ups. Right. We would count them out together. And then we would get the wiggles out. And then we would come back and they were ready to go. And so it really worked. My husband was home from work one day when I was doing this, and he was doing his work in the other room. And then he came in and he saw me doing push-ups. I couldn't believe it. And then afterwards he said, I am so impressed, because he could hear from the other room when we got back into it, and I would ask the boys questions or ask them to share or ask them to listen to someone else read and give a compliment. They all participated, but it was because I had to recognize when they needed to get up and move. Right. So I think that's a key component, because even as adults, it's a lot to sit on a computer screen.
Yes.
For a stretch of time.
So breaks as well.
Yeah, so that's my biggest thing that helped me, and also to sort of read the room.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. You're very good at really seeing everybody, and you're just right there in relationship. So you pick up on that. And that's a really important quality, I would imagine, in all teachers, especially on Zoom, because everyone's right there, right? Like all their pictures are there. So it should be pretty easy to see, like, okay, are people here with me or not?
Yes. And sometimes there's something going on. So, at the beginning of COVID, there'd be a day here and there where someone just wasn't as engaged, and it was because someone in their family was sick. And so I've always been the kind of teacher where you recognize when someone is not acting like they usually do, and sort of be open to listening why, if they want to talk about it, and if they don't, just kind of giving them space. Right. So I think that's important too, particularly during this time, because I think that every family is dealing with different things. Somebody, maybe their mother or father or caregiver just got downsized at work and they're stressed about that. You just don't know. Right. And I'm not going to announce it in the middle of a Zoom.
Right. Of course. Yep.
So, and then I think if you kind of give them room, there are some kids that will say what's going on. Yeah. So I deal with prescription pill addiction in my stories. Maisie's mom has a prescription pill addiction. And when we did a book club talk about it, one of the girls didn't understand, which is, like I said, I write so that some kid might totally get it. Someone else might not understand all of it, depending on their reading level. And so one of the kids said, I don't understand. What was wrong with Maisie's mom? How was she sick? Why did she have to go away? And another girl said, well, we went through this in my family. My older brother, who was a teenager, got injured just like Maisie's mom and was prescribed medication and ended up struggling with it. And so she opened up about this really big, important thing. And I think it's because over the course of 4 meetings, I sort of let everyone have their space to talk and be open about things and have a respectful community, so that then when this really personal thing that she could have brought up or maybe not said anything, she felt comfortable to open up and talk about it. Right. So I think we need to have these, even though it's a computer screen, this openness for kids to feel like they're in the same room with each other.
Yes. Yes. Really important. But that's also great that, you set your storylines so that they are tough situations, but really, so there are kids who can connect with those things and realize that they're not alone in their own homes handling those kinds of issues. And when you do a book club like that, that's even better to help kids. I think it's also a great way to grow empathy, right? To come outside of yourself as a child and realize, oh, somebody else does understand what's happening in this book because it's happening in their home as well.
Yes.
really great conversation. So important.
Yeah, it really was. And I felt like I did my job as a writer, because she
Absolutely.
said that all of the feelings that Maisie experienced in the story were feelings that she walked through with when her own family member had that. So it made me feel like I touched on the emotions. And then the fact that she was able to talk about it was really great. And everyone really listened to her, and they were so respectful. And so anyway, I just try to create a community where people feel open to share whatever they're comfortable sharing.
That's amazing. So are you creating, besides your creative writing classes, are you creating sort of book club situations where girls can read your book, or girls and boys can read your book and then come together to have a discussion about it?
Yeah, so I've opened up to doing, if Girl Scout troops want to do this, if their troops want to earn, there's a storytelling badge, if they want to have me come and talk and do some writing with them, or, discuss all of the friendship qualities that you need to have to be a Girl Scout, how do they relate to the story? So I'm starting to reach out to Girl Scout troops if they're interested, learning pods, friend groups, and schools. So I'm doing book clubs, author visits, writing clubs, pretty much whatever people need right now. I'm sort of putting myself out there and providing.
It is really great, because I know that schools struggle with, how do we teach more empathy, right? And how do we help kids understand empathy? And I think one really important way is what we've just been talking about, right? If they have the opportunity to read your book and then come together to talk about it, they'll learn about each other, and they'll learn about the facets in the book, and that not everyone's the same, and that everyone goes home to a different set of circumstances and different trials and baggage that they're working through.
Yes. And then also the underlying message of both books is that true friendship, authentic friendship is more important than being popular, and more important than fitting in. So I have a lot of layers, so that somebody who maybe was dropped by a friend might read this and find comfort, or someone who's feeling like they've outgrown a friendship, or someone who's struggling to fit in. So I touch on a lot of friendship issues, because I feel like those are the things that kids struggle with the most.
Absolutely. It's the hugest, right? And it happens across grades. I mean, it happens really throughout life, but it's so important.
Yes.
So important to understand that, and to be able to have those conversations. The younger, the better, I think, because they start right away. I mean, they start in preschool. We see it, right? You saw it with your daughter. I saw it with my 3. Like, it's just how it is. It's life, right? It's learning to communicate. It's understanding who we connect with and who we don't, why and why not, and then how we get through it, and how we learn empathy through it all. And you're so right that popularity is not important. And the sooner we learn that, the better everyone is, I think.
Yes. But in my stories, Maisie learns it in the first book, but it takes B both books to learn that lesson. So it kind of shows there are some kids, it's okay if it takes you a little longer to figure these things out, like B. B had to make a lot of mistakes before the lesson really resonated with her. So I'm hoping that even if someone's struggling with that, they'll see that it's okay. You'll figure it out. You'll get there in your own time.
So great. I love what you're doing. I love that you have a passion for writing books, especially that touch the heart and that are so authentic, with real world experiences and hardships that kids go through. And you just have this great understanding, and you're well connected with understanding people. And so it's great. It comes through in your Zoom classes with kids. Thank you for hosting those classes and getting kids to be more creative. So important.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure for me. Yes, it's good for me too.
Well, hopefully you'll be getting you'll get more groups in our area. I know that you have your flyer, and I need to post your flyer because it's just so special. And I know that my daughter's loving being with you and learning from you. So
I'm loving being with them. It really brings me back to being in the classroom, and it's such a joy for me. It really, really is. is.
And it's perfect for you because you light up the screen and you're so like engaging and energetic. So it feels like you're right there. But for your health reasons, it's perfect because you don't have to get sick from all the germs.
Yes.
It's great. It's the best of both worlds.
Yes, and you have that same energy with your interviews. You have a real gift for that. You shine through the screen, and it feels like we're right in the same room together right now.
You're so special. I can't wait to come to New York when we can all go out again.
I
Me
know.
too. I look forward to that.
You.
So fun to be with you. Thank you so much for joining our education series. You're an amazing educator of people all across the board, from young kids to adults at Sarah Lawrence. And actually, I should start a book writing series with you. I'm starting to meet more and more people that are trying to write their book. So maybe we can do a Zoom writing class.
Interesting. We should definitely do that.
Would love that.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we will collaborate.
We will, definitely.
So good to be with you today, Eileen. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching Beyond the Book with Julie, the education series. See you soon.